to challenge you to stare at this piece silently for the next 45 seconds and just kind of look and see what you think and see what you see.
His eyes are very fixed upon something, and there's nothing in his talons. So perhaps he's on his way to get something.
Possible to get the impression that his right wing is bringing up droplets of something.
He does seem very wise and experienced. Like the eyes for me have depth to them. Like he's maybe seen a lot of things.
This is a watercolor. Has anyone ever tried watercolor? It's notoriously hard. To get the layers of color in watercolor is huge. No one can do that. I mean, this is so rare. He actually did have an owl, not a personal owl, but he had a photo of an owl, and I'm not sure where the photo came from. And he projected it on the wall and then created the watercolor over it. So he used very modern processes in a studio.
To me, what resonated was this idea of what is wisdom? What are things, how are you living your day in ways that are going to last forever? You know, so the idea of being called eternity, you get this wise owl kind of bursting into some space. And so when I wanted to talk about community, I think community is something that I've wanted to talk about most of my life, and it's been an important theme of my life. And it's you know, when I'm living in Chattanooga, it's something that I really want to continue to push people to think about. So when you think about community, I always think there's this wonderful tension between, Herodotus is one of my favorite thinkers, so that idea of both, putting tension between two important things, and we tend to want to pick one or the other. And I think wisdom would say you've got to learn to operate with attention. Why is it so difficult for us to learn to operate with that appropriate tension between unity and diversity? So all of us would like to see unity. All of us would like to see diversity. But it's such a hard thing for us. Community, I think, only happens when you link the two. What is Chattanooga's community like right now? What would it look like for us to kind of, you know, take some of this wise paradigm and apply it to right now? I think one of the hopes I have is that instead of looking ahead to the future, we begin to live that way now. You know, seek after the way things ought to be and do it. Let's go.
It seems like the idea of a community kind of begs the question of individual responsibility. So what is as an individual, what is my responsibility to my little network of my immediate family that's in my house and in my physical space all day? And then one layer outside of that is my responsibility to my neighbors and people that I interact with on a daily basis. And then, you know, one layer outside that, what's my more civic responsibility, fellow man kind of thing. So it seems like that kind of begs the question of responsibility as an individual.
Having that diversity of people together, even just rubbing shoulders with people that are different than you, I think makes a change in you. I think just the community dynamic of being around other people, again, that might bring new perspectives is something good in and of itself.
Why do you guys think have you noticed that communities tend to, over time, look more homogenous or look more similar? It's harder sometimes to find the diversity in your communities. Why do y'all think that is? Why do you guys think that is?
And I think it's as human beings, laziness and our love of comfort that, you know, and it's all about not being stuck and everything changes and the tension that you've talked about. But, you know, if it's really diverse, it's going to be more uncomfortable, and we will always go for the path of least resistance unless we're really aware, I think. And so we'll end up with the most comfortable group of people, which are going to be people just like you, and then it's going to be boring. And then maybe you'll start reaching out and you'll say, I don't want to be with people that are like me. And so, you know, I think that that's part of the dynamic that is working in the looping nature of things, and even an ends to a mean or means to, you know. I think human nature will tend towards comfort and then get bored and branch out. And that's what I do.
I think listening, I think coming from another community that was more open to cross-racial discussion and being one who walks on both sides of that, and speaking with a friend who likewise was in that situation and was ready to leave Chattanooga, also being an outsider. due to that, and we had a really good encounter where someone was willing to listen, and he really needed that. And I realized it's not always, it's about caring. Absolutely, I think that's the first point, caring equally with respect. But it's also about listening rather than doing. I think we often look to others different from us, particularly those who are more in need because of socioeconomics or different things that have happened to them, and we rush to help because there's an immediate need. That person is hungry, that person is cold, but often we don't listen enough, and that's something that I think Chattanooga, all communities can work on, and that's something Chattanooga's been so good at doing that I think there's been some missing listening.
I always kind of see Chattanooga as like the downtown area, that this particular area being more like that and being kind of drawing people that have similar interests, maybe getting things done and like having a similar vision, but yet maybe diverse. But once I go out of that downtown area, I don't feel that. I feel like beyond that, there's a different spirit.
The backdrop there.
Yeah, it gets a little dark, I don't know. But it just doesn't, it seems like there's a lot more engagement like in this part of town as opposed to once you get outside and maybe drawing more people into that center. But that's just kind of my experience or my perception of once you get outside of this particular area.
So the question might be, how can you integrate lots of little communities into a bigger community? Yeah. The downtown is probably its own community in itself.
Yeah.
And all those places you're looking are probably communities too, but somehow they're not being integrated.
Well, I think that's interesting in light of the differences and the unity. It's hard when you're different to figure out how you matter to the unity, because often in the differences you kind of get, like you said, separated or pushed out. So I don't know how you can start to make people of differences feel like they matter to make the wings work, spread out, to say all those things matter in the differences. I don't know how you do that, but there is definitely a lot of diversity in Chattanooga, and a lot of it gets missed. I think some of those colors are in the dark. Maybe we need to pull them out.
And this isn't an answer to the question, but I always come back to public education, and not what the answers to those problems are, but there you have everything that this community has to offer. You have all the youth of our community. If we can somehow, reach at that level, starting there, it always seems like that's where you've got your greatest success, because you've got every element of our community on any size that you want to say. So they're sitting right there. How can we reach at that level and at that age, and then actually grow with them?
I just came from trying to get a fifth grader to understand fractions to here, and I was just thinking how different the worlds were. And I guarantee you, she has never been in this neighborhood. It's just, and I think the thing that I miss, I don't know that I've ever experienced it, I know I've never experienced it, but you hear people talk who grew up in high dense population areas, and there was huge diversity in those areas where basically you really had to sort of find your way and make your way among people who were just, there was just no sense that anybody dominated the neighborhood. It was, everybody was different. Most people, there were too many differences to really say anybody dominated. And those people almost always talk about how rich that experience was.
You know, one of the most significant things in my life growing up, I went to college and I took this class studying Martin Luther King Jr.'s speeches. And to be honest, I grew up on Lookout Mountain. I thought I would probably not ever go back there. And it was one of those just aha moments you have. And you love when you have these things in your life. And I'm reading his I Have a Dream speech, and he has this dream that freedom would bring from Lookout Mountain. And all of a sudden I'm like, what in the world? That's probably Point Park. It's like a mile from my house. What if I could be a part of that dream? And so it like changed my whole paradigm. There's a small community and a big community. I think this owl's taking us to the big C, and that'd be my encouragement. So, thanks for the discussion.
And I think this is just a first step, and really, as I said, these all calls to action. So please go home and share this. Talk with someone about it. Think about it. Listen.